something a little bit different on the channel. We'll be making a homemade tomato soup. Now, this tomato soup has a story. Like many families, we have certain Christmas traditions here at the Martin household. And one of those is what we've come to call Scrooge Night. Scrooge Night has its origins from the 1960s, where my grandmother, in an effort to entertain a bunch of kids without a lot of money, was looking for a way to spend some time together as a family. And what she came up with is that they would sit around and they would listen to a Christmas carol. And not just any version of a Christmas carol, specifically this version of a Christmas carol read by Ralph Richardson. Now, I was able to find an original pressing 4 years ago here at a record store in Portland, Maine. I feel very fortunate to have this. But anyway, the family would sit around, they would listen to a Christmas carol, and they would have tomato soup and grilled cheese on Christmas Eve. Now, like a lot of families, we've spread out over the years, and we can't all get together on Christmas Eve. But what we can do is we either get together at someone's home, or we do it over Skype or Zoom, and we still have tomato soup, and we still have grilled cheese, and we listen to this version of a Christmas carol. One of my family members uploaded it to YouTube, and I'll link that below so that my family who's watching this can always find it. But this tomato soup specifically comes from about 5 years ago. I decided to host Scrooge Night here at the house. And I thought my grandmother, for sure, of course, had made tomato soup from scratch. So I started out trying to develop a way to do that and do it easily using a crock pot versus having to spend hours over a stove. Now, of course, when my family came over to enjoy Scrooge Night, it turns out Grandma's tomato soup was literally out of a Campbell's can. But this has become a new tradition where I make 3 to 5 crock pots worth of this soup for my family and deliver it so folks can enjoy. And that's what we're gonna make today. This recipe calls for 32 ounces of vegetable broth, 3 20-ounce cans of whole tomatoes. You can choose any tomatoes. What I like to do is choose 2 cans whole tomatoes, one of which is fire roasted, and then the third can I like to get crushed tomatoes in a basil sauce. 20 to 30 ounces of cheese tortellini. Of course, more is always better. 1 cup of heavy cream, 4 carrots, and 1 large yellow onion. 5 cloves of garlic, but remember, 1 teaspoon equals 1 clove. And finally, you're going to need 2 bay leaves, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and salt and pepper to taste. Next, you want to cut up your onion and your carrots. Sizes here don't matter. We are gonna saute these things, and they're gonna be put in a blender later. So again, size doesn't matter. What you're trying to do though, is you're trying to create as much surface area as possible so that when we saute this, all the flavors blend together. Next step is into a frying pan. We are going to put our olive oil, then add our carrots and our onion. And our garlic. Okay, and then you're gonna just saute this until the onion is soft. After you've sauteed your onion and carrots, add that to the slow cooker. Next, we're gonna add in our tomatoes. Again, if you've got the tomatoes that come in the vegetable broth, drain that off. Just dump those right in. Add your 2 bay leaves. Add your sugar. Pour in your vegetable stock. With all that mixed up, cover your crock pot and set it on low for 6 to 7 hours. The soup has now been cooking for 7 hours, so it's time for the next step in the process. Now first, remember to remove the bay leaves. I've made this mistake before, it'll ruin your whole batch. So you wanna make sure you take those out. Next, we're going to scoop the contents from the slow cooker into a blender and blend the contents until absolutely smooth. You're gonna need a bowl because you're gonna have to do this a couple times. Pro tip, don't put too much stuff in your blender, or when you blend it, it'll explode out the top. So there'll be a max fill line. I actually recommend going below that. You may have to do an extra batch of blending, but believe me, the mess it makes isn't worth the time save. So we're gonna do that, and then we're going to add that liquid back into the slow cooker, add the tortellini, and cook for 1 more hour on low. We're gonna stir that in, set that to low for 1 more hour. And after that hour, we're just gonna turn Crockpot to warm. This is where this soup comes alive. I'm going to add 8 ounces of that heavy cream. And you're gonna mix it in. And there it is, all mixed up and ready to go. All right, now that the soup is done, there's only one more thing to do. All right, that's my Christmas tomato soup. If you like what you saw, go ahead and give us a subscribe below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.